single region. Okay, and now we're recording. But yeah, this is a huge effort, and we're really excited to have your input here as part of this plan as we roll it out. This is a big part of us thinking through where our state is going in terms of digital equity and how we can make that process, the planning process, um, able to include the voices of all parts of our state to make sure that we're really reaching those that need it most. So if we, yeah, here we are on this first digital equity slide. You can see that, there's really a lot of reasons why digital equity is important to Louisiana. And I'm not going to go through those, but as you think about it, whether it's workforce, education, our K-12 or our post-secondary, or if it's the daily work that adults need, just the connectivity that they need to be able to do the things that need to happen as part of living in this world. Connectivity is everywhere. It needs to be everywhere. And it's not always the case that I'm making a lot of noises here. It's not always the case that everyone has equal access. So we're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to pass it over to our local partners. And I guess I should have introduced myself. I'm Anna Osland. I'm at the Blanco Public Policy Center at UL. So pass it over. Are you taking it first? Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Testing. Yep. Good. Yeah. So hello, everyone. I'm Yasik Nomenko. I'm here with the Southwest Louisiana Regional Planning Commission. And really, this meeting is to get all of your input into the digital equity plan that is being developed. But to start off, I'm just going to go through a little bit of information to go over and set the stage for what the discussion is about. So really, we're going to go with what is digital equity? So digital equity isn't just one thing. It is a combination of 4 different factors, which is having a affordable, reliable internet connection. It is for having devices that can be used for it, having the services that are needed for it, whether it be a medical or educational idea, as well as having the digital skills needed to go about to achieve it. And a lot of times people think that, if you have a device, especially with the younger generation, they automatically have the skills, but we're running into interesting issues, especially like in colleges where you have new students come in for some kind of computer class and they are told to download a file. They download it and they can't find where the file is on the computer because even though they grew up with like a tablet in their hands from when they were just little babies, they know how to open an app. They don't necessarily have the skills to really know what's going on in the background. So getting all of these is very important. And in modern day, the access to internet services is really more of a utility, like running water for electricity. It's needed for modern life, unlike before. So getting these is increasingly important. So what is the digital divide? The digital divide represents the distance between parts of society that do have access to all the parts of the digital equity versus those that do not. Different groups will be differently affected. They'll have their own challenges and needs. And the goal is to address all those to make sure we have it. So to begin with, we are starting with writing up a plan. And the idea for the plan is this is going to be the statewide plan. And it is a plan that is going to actually be affected all levels. So we're trying to partition it. So we're helping over here from our side. Now, the big key is for addressing the digital divide, there's more than $1 billion coming in through various funding sources. Some estimates put it around 1.2 billion for Louisiana. And we want to make sure that this region does get proper access to everything that will be needed for it. So basically, we want to make sure that the funding is used properly, that it's secured, and that it's used for different programs to address the digital divide, whether they be getting the actual proper internet access, or if it will be for some kind of programs to help enhance the digital literacy of the community, or simply things like giving access or remote hotspots where they are needed. So basically, these are programs for actionable items that can be done. And this plan is the key to making sure that the funds are properly addressed for it. And then going over for the planning districts, just going over the layout. This is a plan that's addressing, from multiple levels, all the way from the federal, which is where most of the funding is coming from. Then we have the state plan with, the Office of Broadband and Connectivity, which is going to be addressing much of the overall plans for Louisiana. And over here at the planning districts, we're here breaking up to address the local needs of the community, however it can be determined. And we're reaching out to you, the stakeholders who have more intimate knowledge about the individual parts of the plan that needs to be done. So for the collaboration, if we go to the next slide, essentially, we are addressing all of you who are our stakeholders, as well as we're hoping to have more coming up in the future to address issues of what do we need to do to both have the work and jobs available for it. We're looking to make sure that all marginalized groups do have the say, because oftentimes they are the ones most overlooked by various plans. So we want to make sure everything is properly addressed. And for all the various agencies, we want to make sure that the specific challenges that we find out what they are. And really, that's what this meeting is going to be about. It's to find out what are the challenges, what are the things that we can do to help bring over the best plan for the digital equity. And just going over for the timeline, as you can see right now, we are going over the initial meetings to get the feedback. Part of this will include surveys, which we will have a handout copy, but we'll have a QR code shortly afterwards, which you'll be able to use with your phones to get access to the survey, which will be the primary form of feedback you'd be able to give right away. And once you have that survey, we do ask that you actually pass it on to anyone else in your organizations or even just friends and neighbors, because the more feedback that we get about what is needed and what we can address, the better it is that we'll be able to address this. We will be having future meetings as well, and all other types of collaboration projects to ensure that this isn't just a one-time deal, but an ongoing process of us communicating back and forth to address the needs. I do know that our office is open for meetings and to address any questions, concerns you have anytime this meeting or beyond. And at this point, I think we are going to get, and then just giving a little bit of idea of different types of resources we have. Over here is an example of one resource that is can be used to see what type of digital equity issues we are having in the state. So over here, you can see that this is the internet access level overall. And for many portions, you can see that it can be as high as 90%, but for other areas, it can be much lower. So looking over some of the parishes, the regions of it could have internet connectivity of only 60%, which to me is incredibly small. You know, having 40% simply not having proper reliable access to internet in the homes when it is such an important utility is absolutely needed. On the next.
There's a QR code here. So if you want to go look at the Lake Charles region, you can either use the bit.ly link, we have a shortened link there, or use the QR code and we can help walk you through how that works. If you want to look at it by income, and Jessica will go through all of those things. But this is all very interactive and customizable to your parish and your region, so that you can really, go back to your own space and be able to think about how that works.
And then for this one, we have the internet subscriptions for the household. And one of the things you can see, you can also have ones where it gives you a breakdown by ages. And you can see that while the younger generation generally has a lot more access for the digital skills, when you get to the older generations, it seems to taper off, both in terms of simply having the internet access as well as the digital skills. And basically, this is a great resource that can show you the various types of needs that we can address, just giving you an overview of some of them. And we are trying to get it, more elaborate to find out all the different needs that we can go through. And that's the computer access by age group. Like over here, you can see, I believe this is the under 18. You can see that this is actually really close to 100%. Almost anyone under 18 has access to a device of some kind, even if it's a tablet, not necessarily a full desktop computer. Not shown here, but if you switch it over to the 65 and older, you're going to see that it's actually going to taper down quite significantly. And at this point, we're going to get to the point where we would like to get some feedback back from you for some of the questions that we are addressing. And I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay, thank you, Yasik. My name is Mike Oye, and I am the director of I just want to let you know that internet broadband service operations availability throughout the Southwest Louisiana region is a primary initiative and concern and interest to our board of directors, representing the 5 parishes in Southwest Louisiana. And this is a one, there's several, but this is one of our primary efforts and in all aspects. We are very heavily involved in economic development and transportation, drainage, and a number of various elements affecting our communities. We have employed Yasik. He is our digital navigator for the entire region. He is our point person when it comes to finding resources to assist in internet development throughout the region. And, you know, we had a series of disasters in this region in the last couple of years. And I would bring up the subject of internet service providers. And I was told, oh, we have all that. We've got it all. We have all the major providers here. And I said, that's fine. But what's happened is the issue, and I think this was really effective in the disasters demonstrating the importance of internet access. It's an inconvenience. Maybe 15 years ago when we had a hurricane that came through, knocked out our power. We didn't have our air conditioning for 4 or 5 days. But that was then. What is now a business cannot be without internet service. It simply cannot, not for days, never mind weeks or months. And because one of our primary interests is economic development, the issue is, how do you sustain it? How do you develop it? How do you promote it? How do you facilitate in all aspects? And the issue, if whatever you think internet access is and needs are today, project that out another 5 years, project that out another 10 years. Okay, it's critically important today. Ask any business owner. But, you know, we have educators in here, we have health representatives in here. We talk about e-health, we talk about e-commerce, we talk about e-education. And I personally did not focus on residents as much as I should have, because staff reminds me that today, particularly after the COVID lockdowns and the pandemic, we do have a lot of people that work from home. And in just recent weeks, I met with 2 of my first cousins who have very successful professional businesses. They now operate entirely from home in different parts of the country. That's how they function. So our residential communities need to have as much vital access as any business. And so this is an opportunity for you to weigh in, because all of your comments, your questions, and potentially some answers will be documented, and they go into any kind of funding applications that might be available out there. It's Yasik's job to continually search the horizon and secure funding for our member governments, but also for all programs, entities out there. Again, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's commerce, whether it's government or disaster relief and emergency services, this is a critical component today and into the future. And your comments are heavily weighed in helping us justify these objectives. So I'm going to open it up. There's a series of questions that were handed out. if you want to start a discussion on this, Anna's there to field some of this. Anna?
Yeah, I can walk around. So just to give you, or maybe do I do this? So we have a QR code and a link on there to a digital form. And so we want to use this time to hear you and have you talk. But if you're not comfortable speaking in front of a group, or if you'd like to go through and do it online, in addition, if other thoughts come up after you're done talking, we do have a digital form there. We ask that you do, as you're clicking through it, tell us which groups you're representing and what part of the state you're from. So this is the open form that we have. You can also take back and share with the communities that you work with your neighbors, with people that you see, a Rotary Club or something like that. We're interested in getting your input on digital equity, but also know that, in coming to this meeting, we are now turning you into ambassadors for digital equity, and would love for you to continue this conversation across the community. So Mike's got the first question up here, and the QR code and the link will stay the same. They're on every single slide. So if you are like, I'd rather talk about this first one, but on the next one, I want to type it in instead, same QR code. You can follow along with us. If you don't have a smart device, we do have paper copies, but we'd rather that either you speak in the meeting and share it so that we can talk about it as a group, or that you do the online form. So first question being, what are some of the programs or programs in development aimed specifically at addressing digital equity issues here in this region? So around. Oh, and please state your name and your organization or school.
So I'm Erin Chestnut. I'm the director for the Bullheart Parish Library. I do know everyone in the DeRiver area right now knows that the city of DeRiver is working to have some fiber optic lines buried in man. There's a lot of water issues in the city right now. I don't know how far beyond the city into the rural parts of the parish, which, let's be honest, is the vast majority of the parish, those plans go. So if anyone else is here from the police jury or anyone wants more information, I would love to hear about that. But on the library side of things, we offer public computer labs in all of our locations. We have Wi-Fi turned on at all of our locations 24/7. We do offer for adult card holders the opportunity to check out laptops or hotspots, both in-house and take home and use the hotspots at home. Right now we have hotspots from 2 different data carriers. Doesn't mean there aren't still some dead spots in the parish that they don't reach. In the past, we have had sort of digital literacy programs, so some of the basics, how do you use email, how do you use Word and Excel, how to do spreadsheet, these kinds of things. They have always been poorly attended. Even the people who say, I really would love this, I want to learn more about this. Sure they do, but whether it's just a timing issue and when we hold these things is not good for them, or for whatever reason, they've always been very poorly attended. So we actually held off doing them for quite a few years. I'm working with our programming department and our IT department to get back into doing some of those. So we are planning to bring that back. Again, I don't know how attendance is going to happen here. We have also offered online tutorials of how to do these things, but if the problem is you don't have access or know how to use it, then an online tutorial doesn't really work. So I know that's stating the obvious, but that's missing anything you can think of. Oh yes, a couple of years ago when I don't remember if it was the CARES Act or the ARPA money that came down, one or the other, we used some of that fund, some of those funds to partner with various agencies in the city and the parish to get solar powered benches set up in various areas that have a charging station, and we did include a hotspot at those benches so that there's access whenever the library is shut down, which let's hope doesn't happen. But if there's another pandemic that comes around, somebody knock on wood and say that doesn't happen, then, you know, if the buildings are closed for whatever reason, there's still an opportunity. It's a much more limited opportunity, but it's still an opportunity out there.
Anna, I want to follow up on Aaron's comments because that has been our experience also. I had a police juror tell me in a meeting, at a local meeting, he said, Mr. Oye, none of my constituents are interested in this. Not any of them. And I said, well, Mr. So-and-so, I understand where you're coming from and I can appreciate that. But I would tell you, if you have any interest in economic development, your local businesses that you have and any potential business opportunities you might have are going to be interested in this. But you're right. There's a strong and powerful, don't need this out there.
And exactly what you're saying. I struggled for 3 years beating my head against the wall because I didn't see interest, not attending classes, but no interest in, well, why do we need those skills? You know, I don't need that. I can't get those kinds of tech jobs in our parish. So we tried something in January, February this year because I was tired of, I wasn't ready to give up. I figured, okay, so what's a hot topic right now? And it was remote working. And we have a lot of women that are interested in working from home. So I knew that would be an interesting topic. And so we did a 6-week class, a series on remote work from anywhere, hoping we would target, you know, the people who are, that's fascinating to them. We did not call it digital literacy. We did not call it computer basics, but that was our intent, was to teach those kinds of skills. And we got 6, we really had 10 people, but 6 committed women who came, and they learned a lot, and it was like a learning circle. So I think it'll work. We have to market it differently, and it has to be for a specific need that is there in that moment. It can't be just a general improve your skills, because they won't come for that. But it's, hey, this is a high paying job. And you see it in the workforce development. I mean, that's how they tackle it. You know, get this job. These are the skills you need to immediately get this job, and you make this paid. Then they'll come. That's it, but it's hard. It is. And they do constantly say, well, when are you going to teach computer classes? And then you offer them, they don't come. It's the same thing for us. But I did find that if you offer something that is super, either they're really curious about it, or they see that you can dramatically improve their lives, and they see it, you're not telling them that it can improve their lives, then they'll. Erin Davison, I'm the CEO of the Brothers Big Sisters here in Southwest Louisiana. We have a 7-parish region, and I come from a little bit of a different aspect. One, my concern is proper long-term infrastructure support when it comes to broadband equity services, because in our region, we're going to consistently get high wind storms. And if we have aerial lines, we're going to continually be redoing and having the same conversations that we've had since Hurricane Rita in 2005 with our main provider we've had in our region, who did not appropriately support the infrastructure in place, which was a huge challenge after Laura. 2, it's a diversity of consumer control, where regarding of the neighborhood, regarding of what region, whether you're rural or not rural or urban, what have you, having the choice of the provider
is key as well. So you have a diverse consumer group that can pick and choose what may fit their need at that broadband digital equity level. And two or three, I work with families who are predominantly asset limited, Alice family. So they are working, they're drivers in the community, they're paying their taxes, they're working. They don't have the assets to increase their digital broadband or to pay what fiber is charging or what the actual company is charging to come lay fiber or to support fiber if you look at that over aerial lines and things like that. So working with them was it's always been a challenge anyway. But Laura forced us to move into a territory of virtual mentoring because our mentoring since 1904 has been one-to-one face-to-face mentoring. Well, we could not do that because of COVID and restrictions. So moving into that virtual space was a huge gap for our littles. And there was a lot of trauma and mental health challenges because they didn't have that connection to their big that they have in that positive connecting space. And then, of course, they don't have, like we talked about, the proper technology in hand. I mean, they have their phones, which is a computer, but having them have access to that. So we put a hotspot in our building as soon as we could after Laura to offer free. It was a donated hotspot through T-Mobile. It didn't matter if you had T-Mobile or not. T-Mobile has a national partnership with us that is providing extremely reduced broadband capabilities and equipment, whether it's phone or tablets, to our low income and asset limited families. And that, I know trying to promote that is hard because I understand your frustration when I approach our push doors and those that I feel like should be advocating for our community. If it's not in their neighborhood, which the families I serve are not in their neighborhoods, it's challenging to get them to understand because of the privilege that's there and that bias that's there. So I know as we move forward, I know it'll be a complete equity vision. Because equity and equality are two different things in our community.
Yeah, okay, and so let's just, we're gonna go through a lot of questions here, and, you guys are very comprehensive, but we're still gonna try to figure, programs that you have, so that we can make sure we're getting around, and we'll come back.
Good morning. I'm Kim LeBlanc. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Calcasieu Parish School Board. We have several programs in place because answer funding coming down from the government really helps. So all students in Calcasieu do have a device. Some schools let them take them home, some schools do not. In our district, we set up over 60 outdoor wireless access points, so families in the community can access those at any time. You have to log in with your kids' username and password because it's education. So we have those throughout the parish. We do have a set of hotspots that we check out, but there are dead spots here in Calcasieu Parish. I mean, we are very concerned in the Quincy area. We're very concerned in Benton, and we're very concerned in Starks. No matter what we try to do out there, if it's outside of the school, these communities, these residents, they do not have it. It's not reliable. I know the maps show it, but we've been out there to test it. So when they can't find anything that's really reliable in that community. So hopefully this funding coming down will address some of those needs in those areas. I'm Margie Harrison. I'm the director with the Calcasieu Parish Public Library System. And so bridging the digital divide, that was something when the ARPA money came through that this is going to be our focus because that's what we were trying to do. We circulate hotspots all over the parish, and we've tried various vendors. And yes, it starts because it didn't. It's hit or miss, We don't know which ones to put over those libraries because, somebody can check out one and it works and somebody else checks it out and it doesn't work. And so And so one of our goals has been to get out there. We have a library to go service. And so, with COVID and the hurricanes and all that happened, it kind of gave us an opportunity because we weren't bringing people's homes like we used to go out and do what we're kind of calling satellite libraries or pop-up libraries where we would provide devices, hotspots and connections. So that's the program.
There's a lot going on here. What else?
Hello, I'm Mike Harper from Beauregard Parish, and all the issues that are being mentioned here today, I think we have a group that came in from the state to clarify the direction that we're headed. Beneath IGAR over here is going to update everybody on where the fiber gateway process will go through. They just left Beauregard Parish a little while ago. Probably kind of slightly after the start time. But this group, you may be able to get with, gets matched, clarified.
You want to take that segue and introduce yourself? No.
Oh,
Okay.
sure. So Vinny Feinberg, I'm with SWLA, with State Quadrant Office. I think I've met a number of you who are Steve Travels. And then way in the back, you have our other two colleagues, David Lehman and Thomas Tyler Jr. With regard to your question, real quick on DeQuincy, you didn't, I've asked Thomas to look at the map to see if there's areas where we're sparking.
All right. Other thoughts on programs before we keep going? All right. Moving forward.
Okay, well, the next item is the regional assets. Does your city parish have any resources they're putting towards addressing the digital divide or the digital equity issues? Does anyone want to?
This group is pretty comprehensive. Talking about those programs. So if there's others that you want to add, okay, add them now or you might be able to move forward.
Well, I'm just gonna say that we do have both municipalities and parishes that are trying to focus on this. But there are legislative prohibitions against local government. This is not Iowa. Okay, so you're dependent on the private sector for the most part to provide the service. And what I have to, the reason why there's not a lot of interest is that it's a challenge to, you have the attitude that we've mentioned the police jurors. And, and quite honestly, if you're in a rural parish, a lot of timber, I mean, there's just not a driving demand for this. And so how do you communicate it? How do you report it? Never mind, get the local government to commit some resources to it. Now, one of the things that we're going to be pushing is creating technology districts. So that can prompt some resources that can address the issue in the communities. It is specific, like you would have a sewer system or a water system or electric system. That's what we'd be encouraging. If there's no comments on that, the barriers. Are there specific barriers facing your city parish region that pose challenges for achieving digital equity in your region? Yeah.
So really, besides the hard infrastructure, we'll have the money to solve. Are there other things that prevents everyone benefiting from?
Ours is lack of staff. And I know that's the same with municipalities. And I don't just mean like number of staff, it's number of staff that are actually skilled enough
to be able to teach this. That's been my biggest struggle in our library system is the ones who are the most skilled are the ones who are already dedicated to the position. They have the biggest workload or they're part-time and they don't have, like our staffing doesn't allow for us to teach or offer the kinds of digital literacy classes. We have facilities, but we don't have the staff. Of course, is a huge challenge. And I studied to have me talk to them in my
Aaron Chestnut, local Parish Library again. I think a big barrier is what you had mentioned earlier, Claire. It's marketing or communicating the benefit of these courses that we want to offer and these resources we want to have to do in such a way that people will come to those things, or finding a way to bring it to them, meet the people where they are. And I don't think that it would be realistic to do that on a one-to-one scale. So I think finding that communication piece to make the most sense on both ends of the interaction is a challenge we're facing. So if somebody's got a great marketing and communications person on staff somewhere in a state office that can help with this, love to bring them on.
So what would that look like?
I don't know. That's why I haven't done it.
But, let's unpack that. Right? So the challenges are with digital classes is, to your point, the staffing is continuing enormous issue, right? And it's across the board. The second, obviously, is having people come to the location to get those classes, right? The timing of those classes, because there is a luxury for people who are above means to be able to take off time from work or what have you. So what do you guys, I guess, what do you, in terms of solutions, in terms of, we can't do this one-on-one, but what suggestions or thoughts? What would a wish list be that could help break some of these barriers? If money was no object, if resources were not an object.
I don't know about that. Okay, there are pieces of this that I don't know how we would make work, but could we work with someone like LPB? Get some of these classes recorded and then play them day after day for who knows how long, maybe at different time periods during the day. And that might hit some of it, but some of this stuff you really need that device you're talking about in front of you. And if you don't have that, then watching this on TV isn't going to really help that much.
14-year-old calls my dad. My dad calls my 14-year-old and he like walks
So,
through.
where do high school students, where do middle school students, do they have, I guess, community service requirements that they have to make? Where does the pastoral community, faith-based community come in? Because at the end of the day, you want to make it easy for folks to access whatever we want to access, right? So whether it's fixed wireline, fixed broadband to the house, wireless coverage. I mean, our goal as an office is to make broadband ubiquitous, meaning you have access to a high-speed affordable internet at home, you leave, you can travel, what we did this morning all the way to Ritter, and you should have 5 bars on your cell phone at all times. And that's our goal, is to invest in that infrastructure. But it would be really interesting to forget, how do we create that kind of fabric in the community so that people have resources, staffing, creatively to address
partner. So you're talking, you mentioned something about forming
Well, we have a goal of, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have several major initiatives for the whole region. Fiber, internet access development is one of those. Okay, in all aspects. So how you, again, you're challenged because a lot of elected officials do not understand the complexity of this, and they're getting feedback. My constituents are not interested. That's the majority. There are people who are interested. There are entities who are interested. And I think that awareness is growing by the month. I like to think that. But again, it is this is not a simple, easy thing. For example, we're involved in transportation. We can get the vehicles for you to run transit, school buses or whatever. There are no drivers. It's a crew. It is a horrendous shortage of drivers. Well, I see homeless on the streets here in Lake Charles with cell phones. Now, that's a level of sophistication that surprises me because it costs some money, and to the user and to the provider. And who's doing that? I mean, who is providing the money and who's providing the service? And it's I call fiber and broadband, you know, the fifth utility. This is critically important to local elected officials. It should be. Are we there yet? I don't think so. Some are becoming aware of it. Mike Harper is one of those, and we have others in our region. But the challenge is, how do you do it? Okay, so how do you go to taxpayers and say, look, we need revenue here to do this?
So we have to certify Louisiana that every unserved, underserved structure has access to high speed. Now, whether that person pays for it, that's not what we're judged on as a state government. That's up to all the residents. Which talks about, so when those elected officials and legislators say, well, my people don't need it. We have to certify to the feds and to the state and to the legislature, frankly, that they may not need it, but they have access to it. Then the question then becomes, how do we show value so that they pay for it? Right, and I think that's going back to your economic development question. From an older adult population, telehealth, FaceTiming with kids or grandkids. Older adults typically use Facebook as a platform to communicate. It's those kinds of different ways, modalities that we have to variety.
So this is basically a task force. Is there not a way, and do other parishes already have this, like, you know, the schools have their IT people and the teachers that are heavy in IT, and they meet. They keep each other current, they keep each other communicating, but that doesn't exist outside of each organization. And to me, that's where the change happens. Because we are different entities right next door to each other that are all trying to do the same thing, and we're killing ourselves trying to do it alone. But there's nothing structurally in place. There's no task force that I know of in place. The focus is just on this, outside of the infrastructure part. I know that's happening, but no one's getting together and talking about it and trying to figure out. You mentioned the churches, and I'm glad because they're key in most of our community.
So you're spot on. I think the overwhelming focus right now is addressing the access piece. It's accessing the infrastructure piece because that's frankly getting the most plug. It's also the greatest need, right? Is that we have to work with a sense of urgency to disseminate these dollars as quickly as possible. Maybe $1 billion more dollars, maybe $1.1 billion, $2 billion, and then keep on winding down those dollars. But yeah, to your point, it's just because, and to your point, Mike, this is really complex stuff. We're being very careful at the state office not to overwhelm the parishes, officials in terms of getting them up to speed on a very complex issue. And so we've been a little bit deliberate, not focusing on these kinds of issues, though we need to make that hard to.
So I don't know if you can just back the slides up to the table that has the 4 legs of digital equity. And then you kind of move up here some.
Yeah, okay.
That might be. If we back it up, just as we're thinking about these questions. There we go. So these are exactly what you're bringing up here and the other librarians, but also the Office of Broadband is bringing up like, it's not just the internet, it's not just the device, it's not just the skills, it's not just the software, all of it. So I think that's how we have other things that we actually talked about. And you know, I just want to make sure that we're doing a well-rounded person.
My name is Michael Cherry, and I'm the director of the city of Lake Charles. Is there anyone here from Workforce? Workforce?
Yeah,
Sort of ish.
I'm not from, I'm not from this.
One of the things that I've seen at work is, and we see this in our public works department, and I think some of the in our fire department, is you get young people, you know, out of high school, they're not gonna go to college, and then they're not gonna go to SWLA, it's not yet, or to another community college, and they get a job because they need a job. And they'll do that for a couple of years, and they'll wanna move up. And then it's time to move up to be a foreman or whatever. That's where the problem comes. They can often get the job, but they can't always do the job if they can't use the word themselves. The foremans all have computers, they sit at a desk part of the time, but increasingly they're in the field, a tablet, and a web-based application. And you know, if they're not able or willing to learn how to use web-based application in Microsoft Office, they're not going to go very far, and their income is going to be cut. I know that workforce people that do work for the Workforce Commission and actually talk about this stuff. You know, I think I'm fairly certain that school, right? Those sorts of issues I don't know always come up in the library level. But I just wanted to point that out, that one, you know, sales angle might be, you know, you didn't get this in high school, you're going to need it as you get paid because you're not going to need it.
Yeah, I really do. Yeah, over here, I want to hear from
As you already said, it's supposed to their taxes. Christy came from the top, she came from and also that she can resources officers and workers. I think it's all of those things very important to our current and future workforce. There's not a healthcare facility in this area that can do their job without technology, without digital imaging, without the electronic medical record. It's critical. We talked about 4 or 5 days without having access to this post hurricanes with all of them. And it's very difficult. It's very healthy as a resident in our parish to need the security to have the appropriate health care when you need it. You don't always want to think about we're going to need it, but we do. Emergencies happen, and we want to be able to provide that quality care at any time and depend on technology to do so. Talking about how do we get people to attend some of these classes and digital literacy. And I'm thinking about my lower wage earners who want to continue to grow their careers and their skills, but they can't afford to take time off of work. So partnering with your larger employers, making it part of their workforce development program. It's a win-win for your employer because it lets your employees see, hey, they're interested in me. They want to help me to grow as the employer. It's a great benefit to us to bring additional skill into it.
You actually read my mind because the one group that we haven't really engaged with is the employers themselves, right? We talk about the libraries and the schools and the community colleges and the chambers, but we haven't really talked about the employers themselves because they have a great deal of of influence as part of career laddering and upskilling. So that's a great point. Um, but let's think back, Christy, to when the pandemic happened, um, and suddenly everything had to go home. Everyone shifted, and everyone went home. And then even from a telehealth perspective, what were the challenges that your patients and your census was facing as a result of this sudden move to telehealth?
Very difficult, not just from the provider standpoint, to do so much of telehealth because with HIPAA and other regulatory issues, you can't just FaceTime with your doctor or telehealth. So to have to be able, or a healthcare facility to have those things in place prior to some type of emergency event is very important. And then those things start from through. We're not just handing out things for very expensive programs that we have to pay to invest in.
But from the patient's perspective, who were so elderly patient has never used a device, may not even have a device, may not even have a device that's suitable to do a telehealth visit. What would happen in those cases?
If we have if not, if there is no testing, because get into some systems.
Their libraries are helping actually that actually have
Right. Why? Transportation. Okay.
Question on employee training. And this is sort of a question for people who do grants and programs. Are there are there programs targeted at very short term employee training? Let me give you an example. We do in the city of Charles, we do every summer 2 and 4 hour 1 day training sessions on applications that are employees. It's Microsoft Office. We've done a couple of them. And we're able to do that in the summer because I've got a friend who's a teacher. And this is what she does during the year, and during the summer she's free. I can't get her outside the summer. We don't really know anybody else in the look hard. We do it outside of the summer. It's not intended to get them a degree. It's much smaller than anything SWLA would offer. It's just learn how to open Excel and do something and create a spreadsheet. Are there programs that are targeting sort of that small size of employee training?
The Louisiana Economic Development has IWTP and the SBET program. I know I worked with McNeese 20 years ago and was the grant writer and facilitator. And I know that's something that with unemployment insurance, trust fund goes up and down, the actual grant allowances go up and down. But it is, I find, I use it for Big Brothers Big Sisters, the SBET for Excel training, word training, communication training, and stuff like that. So employers, I don't know if y'all know about it, but if you pay your unemployment insurance taxes, you're eligible to receive reimbursement grant funding for training and retention in Louisiana. but I know it's not a marketed program like it used to be, which I think is a gap for employers in our state. I didn't know if y'all are gonna answer that. I'll jump with that.
Do you have other employers?
I was just gonna say, Marjorie, we subscribe to Udemy, Udemy, and Niche Academy, and really you just need a library card and you can log in and Excel. I mean, you name it, even technology, IT stuff. So it's about learning. Well, I'll say, no, our staff's really excited about it, and we want to offer trainings and things like that. But right, how many people use it? Not tons.
At the school system, if we started doing, programs for parents and students or grandparents, I mean, that's starting to be something I'm seeing. So I'm just curious if you guys.
Here, doing a lot of things for parents right now. We've got a big literacy initiative, of course. Anything you do like that always brings in technology with it. So we've got big literacy right now. We have done classes for parents before, but since all the disasters we've had, we've kind of just been in repair mode. So we haven't got back to normal yet. We still have buildings that are still dangerous and things like that. But that's always been on our list here in community resources. A lot of the schools do things on digital citizenship with their parents at open house. The school district is running a big digital citizenship campaign right now where they're teaching lessons, and we're trying to do everything we can because, like some of you said, they have a cell phone. They don't know how to use it in education. They know how to use it for social. So that's been one of our big focuses in having every child with a device.
Other thoughts or anything? Next question.
Well, I think there's a common theme here, and some of it's communication, some of it's education, and how do you transmit the information? How do you engage on the educational level? It's a challenge for a city. It's a challenge for a school system. It's a challenge to parents. And it leads into the next question, strategies to address the digital equity. And what supports does your community need to address digital equity gaps in your community? So how do you go about addressing this? It goes down to how does the city of Lake Charles do it? How do the hospitals do it? How do the school systems do it? And just the general public.
Two ideas, one that we're trying to do and one that we can use. The city has 7 or 8 recreation centers that historically have been used mostly for after school homework time. Computers, sitting with your homework, just somebody cracks the book and finish that play. There's at least one center that's located in the senior center, and don't know what programs they run. Certainly nothing during COVID. May not even be operating because the building is being used. But those facilities have been used and could be used for more for community-based training, really for anything. We just happen to be talking about digital equity, but it can be healthcare and everything. The other idea is sort of the old library book idea. Who's from SWLA? Okay, so my wife works at SWLA, She's actually in theater right now, with the trailer, which has got technology, and they're wanting to get some high school students to advertise to the students. And they drive this trailer in, and they've got technology that can go into anything with the car. But one idea would be a resource like that, either from SWLA or the school board or the library or the, the city even, that, could be taken closely to do training. I think it could be tied into, employers. We happen to have a training room that'll seat in, but if we didn't have that, we wanted to offer the kind of summer training that I described earlier, we would be able to take advantage of a facility like that. You almost not think of it as the, like the, blood mobile that drives up, and they're there all day, and you go, give you blood, and you're there for an hour, whatever. That kind of idea, I suspect somebody somewhere might offer a little grant money for something like that. It might tie into, IWTP, is that the abbreviation? It might be something that ties into that. It might be something the workforce commission could find a way to buy, move it around town or move it around the parish or whatever, multiple parish. Some ideas for that. Well, came to me from my car for again from our parish. Thinking about that. We have groups of people in every parish of the state that are sitting in jails. And they quite often like that education so that when they get out, they can enter the workforce and be productive. And we wind up talking about rates of recidivism rather than success rates, for those leaving the jails. That may be one way that we could perhaps set up classrooms at our jail so that they could go there and learn skill, no different than a trade school, and they have nothing but time in it. And I think that everybody would benefit by them being productive citizens rather than being a burden on society. Just a thought.
Anthony Barty, Calhoun Parish Police Bureau, District 9. Just like everyone else has been saying, the one thing that exposed us in the lack of services and the lack of equity was the COVID situation. How do you get the community involved? How do you provide access to the people that need it the most? Which is your question. And I think one of the areas that we can always take a look at is, I know the parish, we sponsor certain organizations. Some of these organizations, fraternities, sororities, church groups, like we said, I think that's where we have to start, because you're talking about getting pockets of people involved. Who deals with more individuals on a weekly basis than the churches? And I think if we can get some of the churches involved, which most of them already programs, but if we can provide and make sure they have ample access to, which I'm sure they already have computers and internet services, but if we can work with some of those groups, I think at that point, because a lot of those faith-based organizations, a lot of sororities and fraternities have youth programs. And I think it would be real easy to get them to incorporate some type of technology into some of the programs that they're offering to these children. And to the adults as well. Because just like you're saying, for the medical field, some of the older people need the services for their medical situations. I know the church I go to is filled with old people. I'm one of them. But I think that's an area where we can start, and an area that's really pretty simple to really tap into.
I'm going to follow up on that. Being a planner for many, many years, neighborhood planning and development is a foundational instrument in that process. And the churches play a key role in neighborhood planning and development. All of them. So when you're working in a neighborhood, a particular neighborhood, now what I have found is the pastors will come together for a particular meeting, but the people will go only to primarily to that church in that neighborhood. So you got to hit all of them if you want to comprehensively hit the church. But that is, in my opinion, a very excellent approach. That's where it is.
And I'm gonna tell you, this is really, it's really a ground game. In order to solve this digital divide, it's gonna have to take, Mike's, as you said, it really needs to take census block by census block, address by address. So we're gonna have to, this is gonna really take some time and effort, but when, because we're learning just as much every day from meetings like this, and we've been doing this for the last year and a half, right? And sort of spooling that up to the folks at the federal level and so on and so forth. So I think that's important for us to all be cognizant of.
Well, oh, here we go.
But you know that I pretty much know everybody in town, I know how to find. You know what we could not find? We could not find contact information for some of these groups. We invited people to help selection before. We don't know if we have the right contact for those groups. We couldn't get the faith-based organizations to give us the contact info. We wanted all of those to be included. So what we could do is, you know, as y'all said, and as our team needs, we need those connections. So if you all, I'm going to send you the email invitation. So if you think about it, if you know of someone, just provide them an email and let's add them to this list. Because the only way we're going to get information out to them is if we know how to reach them. Because we could put it on TV, we could put it on the radio, but that doesn't necessarily mean people are right? They want that personal connection, and we need to know who they are to touch them and to get them.
Knew who they were, right?
We house meetings.
Something Mr. Bennett mentioned. Churches, pastors, I mean, parishioners are only gonna go to their churches, what their church is doing. I think if you can involve each and every public official, every police bureau, every city council, because those city council guys, as well as I'm gonna be a little biased and I'm gonna be just as guilty. If someone tells me something, I'm gonna be looking for churches in my district. Those city council guys, same thing. If you present it to them, present it to each and every one of them, they'll find the biggest and most progressive churches in their area. And trust me, they'll take it to you. So I think if you involve those guys, you can get a lot of traction.
Right. And so that's why I think one of y'all talked about putting together a task force or a broadband committee. Mike, I know we've talked about it as a region. I'm sure you guys are doing that. Certain parishes have done it, certain parishes have not. So there's really a small sample size to see which ones have worked or which ones haven't. But, you know, for example, it was cited this morning that y'all, when we were in DeRitter, that y'all talked to the folks in Sabine Parish, and, you know, their, I guess, broadband team, which is all voluntary, is made up of different folks from different sectors, which includes superintendent, parish officials, local economic development, tourism, I think the Farm Bureau, and all sorts of different folks. That I think collective, when you start to see collectively many different types of stakeholders and community get behind a singular issue, which is this, then you start to see more traction in the community.
Think about taking that to those groups and having them also share information. Hi, I'm Jill Gallery with the Community Foundation. I am primarily responsible for facilitating the 50-year resilient master plan that's happening for Waukesha Family Parishes. And I will say from an infrastructure standpoint, broadband is in our plan recommendations. We know that we need to do better across both parishes, especially in the rural areas. From a programming standpoint, I think with our economic development and some of our other projects that we have planned out with this master plan, I think that there are ways that we can address the digital equity gaps within the planning process of those projects. For example, we are working on a choice neighborhood grant right now in the center of the city, which needs a lot of programming partners. We visited a lot of other choice neighborhood properties or areas, and there is adult learning aspect and youth learning aspects that are all around digital equity. So when we're talking about a task force, that sort of already exists, not necessarily specific to digital equity, but through the master planning process, knowing, not only infrastructure, but the programming aspect for education and economic development. If we have, this critical mass of people who want to figure this out, we can help with that. That is a grant program from the county to do mixed income housing on the housing development or housing authority property on the street.
Yeah, and when we think about, and I think, Anna, you had that slide up at the very beginning, with the red blocks. When we think about digital opportunity, digital equity, inclusion, think about the challenges that each of those segments, each of these folks have, and just work backwards. Because even at the very minimum, if you said, broadband team, from a community anchor institution, which are public safety and so on and so forth, if at the minimum you help to identify the what, and the what is the problem, then we could be creative on working on the solutions together.
Big one here that you guys have talked about a lot, which is communication.
Well, again, I think we've been communicating, we've been talking about this. How do you address the digital equity, and through what specific modes of communication? I think bringing up the churches and communicating with the churches in the neighborhoods. That's a valuable resource. That's a valuable platform of communication. And however you want to get it out there for young and old. I think that, but again, this is an open question. I'm not the only one that has potential answers. And how do you reach out to specific stakeholder groups? Again, it kind of reminds me, how do you teach people they need electricity? you know, it's, I guess, observation, the lack of it and the need for it. And so, but I do agree that with each passing year, this digital divide gap is going to have to be closed. And it's going to take a lot of money. And it's going to take a lot of expertise.
Masking, because I mean, that's one of the challenges, you get a group of people who are interested, but nobody wants to create some complex email list, group list through multiple organizations, everybody communicates with the government. Municipalities already have to have this in place. I mean, there's tools that are used. So I mean, if there's something that we can use, we can form a group of stakeholders that already exist that we can just tack on and everyone can sign up for and shoot text and email.
That seems like a very easy approach. But if you're a parent and you've got kids and the school is alerting you to everything already, you can get overload. And from our perspective, when you're dealing with transportation, or you're dealing with drainage, or you're dealing with utilities, or you're dealing with housing, or you're dealing with economic development, if you're setting up these groups, you're getting is a danger, very real danger, that I've had to step in and stop it, because everyone's tapping into a mayor, and the mayor needs to see this. The mayor, and so the mayor is getting, any mayor is getting 45 emails a day, okay, on a variety of different subjects. You can't do it. And for me, it's like trying to keep your elected officials educated, going to the police juror meetings, and they have a binder for the meeting that's, this thick, and they've got only, 76 items on the agenda. They're not paid enough to read all of that material. They depend on the staff unless they have something very specific in there. What's the hook? There has to be a hook to whatever you're interested in. And you got to find the hooks, and then you got to keep them on the line. I don't, there's no simple answer to that question, in my opinion. But
Your comment, there are some lists that people subscribe to from hurricane season, people sign up for notifications. City of Lake Charles has you pay your water bill online to see, you can opt in for text message notification, and that's a 34,000 water customers, and probably at least 115,000 on that list. Now, the list is created for one purpose, but for potentially for very rare announcements, it could be used for some other purpose. It could be used to announce whatever way this makes it. Want some news to say we're going to start operating here in so there are some. The question is whether they can be accessed and whether they can be used for the purpose.
I would just say that this is where partnerships come into play. I think it's asking a lot for people to sign up for a service. Most people just don't, they don't want to spam email, or they don't want to text messages, and you have to be proactive to do that. And people aren't, not everybody is proactive. And so I think creating partnerships where they're getting the information through their employer, through their kids' schools or their activities, or at senior facilities or something like that, where maybe as this task force or whatever it is that's going to disseminate the information, gets the information to those partners who then can share that information with whatever their constituency is, usually students, the elderly, whatever. I think we have to do both. I think we have to be, the proactive, but not just pay, special attention.
I guess that's the one area that we always fall short in getting our messaging out. But I think if you can develop a stream of public service announcements, that's an area that you can probably tap into all the local radio stations, all the television stations, because, they get FCC credit for running public service announcements, so they'll do that free of charge, quite naturally. And then maybe you can involve the local university and their broadcast department to where students can get together and produce something that, you don't have to have a cost to have it produced and then turn it over to Channel 7 to air, turn it over to Fox 29, as well as Town Square, Cues, and all the other broadcast medias in here.
All of his urgent reach groups sort of attached to them somehow, like our parents, students, or, students in poverty. Things that you're doing. We use a system to reach everybody, that does call outs, text messages, emergency information. We also use our title department that tends to our homeless so that we can make sure that those children who are homeless have services. So we do those kinds of things. Any other thoughts?
Has this been helpful? Sort of ish.
Okay.
And I can't believe I'm such an organic person to hate my we talk about all these things to do, but then when we go back individually to who's coordinating, what, because we're all gonna just keep talking, or we're all gonna go back to our parishes and some of us are gonna do this and do it alone.
Well, all I can tell you is this man right here is our point person, Yasik. He's a digital navigator for the region. He's to corral the issues and come forward with recommendations and solutions.
Essentially, this is the starting point for us, getting everyone in, find out what the needs are, and then we can establish the systems, we can establish the lines of communication and make sure that this isn't just a discussion that goes nowhere, but we stay connected and stay in touch and get these programs rolling.
And then from our perspective at the state level, so, and I apologize for coming late this morning, but really two things, we're doing actually 5 things at the same time, okay? The first thing is we've committed 170 million in gumbo dollars already. On November 21st, let me take a step back. So 170 million we committed. We issued grant agreements October 21st, so last week. So by law, they have 30 days to sign the grant agreements. And once these companies sign the grant agreements, they are effectively on the clock with the state, with our office, to build in the locations that they're going to build throughout the state of Louisiana. That's one thing. So we got to make sure those things happen. And the other thing is once those grant agreements get signed, we're gonna have to spend a ton of time with the parish officials to ensure things like we avoid DeQuincy, or rather DeRitter-like issues, okay? Water main breaking, all that stuff. That'll take some time. So that we will do a lot of hand holding with both the company and the providers. So that's swim lane number 1. Swim lane number 2 as an office is we're creating a statewide address level map. And when I say address level map, it's a map that tells us, and it's data that the ISPs are providing for the first time. It's data that they're providing to us that tells us at an address level what they're actually providing, what speeds, what kind of technology, and so on and so forth. That map, that data has been sort of uh, there's really been the missing piece for a lot of this stuff, which has created not confusion, but frustration with a lot of folks. And so all the internet service providers have agreed to provide us that data. They have provided that data September 15th. We're going to spend the next couple of months, probably 2 to 3 months, to create a statewide address level map. And then we'll update those maps every 6 months. That's swim lane number 2. Swim lane number 3 is in anticipation of getting the infrastructure dollars from the U.S. Department of Commerce. We're probably going to get over $1 billion from the broadband. It's called BEAD program. We have to put together a 5-year plan. We have 270 days as of this past August 31st to put together that 5-year plan. So today is day 50 or 55. So we've got 220 days to do it. What that 5-year plan is going to tell us is basically they're asking us, tell me how you're going to spend this money, where, and the mechanics by which you're going to spend this money. So we're working on that. That's swim lane 3. Swim lane 4 is this work. We have to put together the first digital equity plan. We submit that digital equity plan and that 5-year plan, swim lane 3, and then digital equity, swim lane 4, at the same time, say by April, to the feds. Feds will say, yes, this is good. And then what happens then is we'll probably see the first 20% of that $1 billion plus this time next year. And then we're going to probably receive between 20 and $25 million to execute this plan. And we'll see that this time next year. That's swim lane 3, swim lane 4, swim lane 5 is, I don't even know what it is, but it'll probably be something that'll be coming down the pipeline quickly. So those are from a timeline perspective, those are the 4 things, big things that we're working on really, really quickly. No, that's why I'm looking, that's why I come here. I'm fishing for ideas and I'm listening, and I hear communications, I hear staffing, I hear employer base. I'm here. Yeah, we have not defined the rules yet. But also we have to, I mean, we're going to receive over $1 billion. We're going to be really judicious with that $1 billion from on the infrastructure. There are really 2 pots of money, $1 billion from to build the infrastructure, and then 25 for this. You know, we may have money from the $1 billion that we could spend towards digital equity. I don't know. Probably so. That's why I'm
Share this. And Jamie will send it up to the meeting. We also have a few paper copies that if you want to take with you, you can send it. I don't know if my email's on there, but if not, you can send it to the Blanca Center of Louisiana, or just take a picture of it, send it to us, send it to Denise if you have it. Here's our Blanca Center email. We do have these if you work at the library, for example, and you think that people would like to take this on a paper version. We would love for them to take it digitally, but if digital is a challenge, we need to share that too. We have some paper copies here. So, please stay in touch with us with, whatever we can. We're working hand in hand with the youth office to support whatever.
yeah. So I need a ton of this feedback. I need, outside of just y'all, I need as many people to provide substantive feedback, but also, what does the wish list look like if we lived in utopia? Okay. And we wanted to build, as my dad said, castles in the air. What does that look like? Right? What does that wish list look like? Because I think correct. Yeah, so North, like we were in Senla yesterday in Alexandria, their needs are gonna be different. We're going to New Orleans tomorrow, their needs are gonna be different. We're gonna go to Monroe, I think, or Baton Rouge, Monroe, Shreveport, their needs are gonna be different because of just what's driving their economies and sort of socioeconomic challenges they have, so. So think big, help us identify the problems, think big, and then work with us on in the table and Anna, et cetera, all right?
Appreciate it. Thank you.